Hello friends, welcome to this last section of product and brand management. These two sessions I would be taking you towards the culmination of whatever we have discussed, especially in brand management. We have been talking about reinforcement, rejuvenation, revitalization of brands, and those are very important aspects. Today in this session you would realize why I have been emphasizing upon those aspects and why authors have worked so much on those. So let's go ahead with our journey with the concept of rebranding, and then I will take you towards a concept which has been worked upon by several authors. We would be using a research paper published in a good journal for highlighting the aspects of demise of a brand, which authors have explained with the help of their research, and I will be taking clues from there and would be taking to a stage wherein you would yourself decide that should we consider anything as demise? Do brands they ever vanish? So that would be an important kind of a thing which you would realize, and I am sure you would enjoy this. And then I would be incorporating a life cycle concept with the brand perspective, which again is an evolving kind of a concept. Many authors and organizations they have been working upon that, and they have come up with wonderful insights, but I would be taking you towards a perspective and would not be using any research or explanations given by others at this moment, at this juncture, that because that is an evolving kind of a thing. I would let you decide on how to think about that on the basis of fundamental principles which we have discussed up till now. So that is going to be this session, and next I would be actually summarizing things with the help of a case study, again one of my favorites. So let's start with rebranding, which involves entirely changing the identity of a brand. So complete change in the identity, which is a very difficult kind of a thing, and we have talked about repositioning, which is not related to actually changing the identity completely, but here you want to change it entirely. This may include designing a new logo even, or choosing a new name for the brand or core product, business model and more. Although it somehow is suggestive of the fact that this brand, which has completely changed in the form of a name even, has evolved from which root, and that is why it is suggested as rebranding. Now you see Hero MotoCorp for example. So here what I mean when you say rebranding, it is associated with that. After dissociation, Hero and Honda they separated, and it's a happy separation. Both of these organizations are growing and doing exceptionally well, and Hero, which has been contributing definitely in a huge way in Indian economy as well as Indian automotive sector, and it's a global organization now. So they completely rebranded themselves with a new logo here, and they definitely brought in logic to that, wherein black color in the logo stands for solid and emphasis kind of and premiumness, while the red gives a feeling of energy, passion and confidence. And they brought in Mr. A.R. Rahman to compose the song for the ad Hum Mein Hai Hero, and it's such a wonderful kind of an expression when they came in with Desh Ki Dhadkan. So that again it's a wonderful thing. And then Vodafone and Idea merger, wherein they merged and they call themselves VI now. So it's an interesting kind of a thing basically, and then there are several details which are available on net as well as far as this rebranding goes. So we all know Vodafone, we all know Idea, but sort of a rebranding was required when this merger happened. So starting from Hutch to Vodafone, and Vodafone plus Idea, the whole story goes. But today we have VI, and you see they did it within a very short span of time. That is a very important kind of a thing for us to understand, that rebranding wherein you are entirely changing the landscape and understanding of the customers and all your stakeholders and everyone who is associated with your organization, you somehow take lesser time for this acceptance to be generated amongst your stakeholders. That is a very important kind of a thing. Definitely lots of integrated marketing communication and awareness related elements are required, but again you generate a chord with the existing brand knowledge and existing brand value to actually flow into as far as the potential of the newer brand which is emanating from the present. So, now I should be taking you towards brand demise, and here I would be using Ewing MT, Jevon CP and Khalil EL, a paper published in 2009 called as Brand Death, a developmental model of senescence, Journal of Brand Research. Now, you see why these kind of researches, they are important, because authors, they are continuously trying to find out theoretical premise, they work upon data, they bring in so much of insight for us to understand. So, here authors, they focused upon few key elements, although the culmination of their research is suggestive of the fact that brand, they die, they they stop working, but I will be focusing upon few questions which come to my mind with regards to these kind of researches, and especially this research, which is very important also. But and this is, as I said, it is an evolving perspective. So, I would be presenting a perspective around this for you to understand and to take it further in your thought process on, as I said, on the basis of whatever we have learned in due course of time. So, the paper says that brands show many living characteristics. They are born, they grow, they cross fertilize, reproduce through brand extensions. Now, that is an interesting kind of an analogy. They have taken it from the biological life cycle metaphor. So here they are talking of a butterfly actually. So, and then they say that they become independent of parents through choice or necessity, and although the thought is unpleasant, almost inevitably the brands, they go towards demise, as they say. So, they tend to move towards demise as they are suggestive of. So, and then brand life cycle or life cycle perspective is related to that, and you would see that brand life cycle perspective also has some resemblance related to these kind of things if we start working upon that. Now, brand demise is inevitable and not necessarily caused by managerial incompetence, as the authors have noted in their research. They further add that the life of brand involves companionship between the consumer and producer, which is a very important element, and we have talked about that. Consumption is the driving force behind the rise and decline of brands. When a consumer buys a product, he or she is not only seeking material utility, but also seeking affirmation of his or her own self image. That is very important, and we have realized that because we talked about resonance as far as the pyramidal perspective goes, then we talked about brand architecture also, and in value chain also this kind of a reflection comes in. This demise, as they are referring to, is a natural part of a brand's development process, because they are looking at it with a perspective of a biological analogy, and they say that it is instigated, the demise is instigated by consumers seeking to satisfy not only the material needs, constitutive utility, but also their self image, symbolic utility. And somehow if it does not get materialized, then consumers tend to move away, and somehow the brand is no more. So, they extend an example that a shirt satisfies both needs. The warmth or practical utility, constitutive utility that the shirt provides differs from the sense of self respect or sense of achievement, symbolic utility that the shirt may deliver. So, that is the kind of example they have given. Then they talk about constitutive utility and symbolic utility, which I would decipher for you, and then I will take you towards what we are trying to build up. Now, you see they are suggestive of the fact that how can one explain the demise and the rise of new brands, death and the rise of new brands. So, one is constitutive utility, which refers to material physical utility of the brand product. It comprises of well-being effect and reflexive effect. Now, the well-being effect is the primary welfare affording utility such as warmth, nutrition, housing and so on. For example, Kodak. And they elaborate upon Kodak example, wherein in due course of time it faded away. But the question which I have for you in mind after this is Kodak there or no? And I would come back to this, but just to give you a clue, Kodak is still there in our memories as a name. Now, then comes in reflexive effect. It arises from remembrance, usually through social interaction or only through mementos of the original well-being experience. The reflexivity effect is the origin of fads and so on, and they talk about Nokia. And they suggest that Nokia, one of the pioneers as far as the cellular network based phone goes, and then they went along, but somehow were late in smartphone category. But the point is it there? Is Nokia somehow there? I leave it up to you, and as of now just wonder about this question. Then comes in symbolic utility. You see, people buy things not only for what they can do, but also for what they mean. So, there is a boredom effect, probably there are better options, as the author says, wherein they talk about a car ambassador, which we all know. You arrive at Kolkata airport and railway station and you will find so many ambassadors in taxis still being used. The point is ambassador still there? It is. Think about this, it is still there. So, and then there is a status effect. So, for example, consumers they actually expect that they should be getting a bundle basically, and that is what authors say, that as more relevant people, this is that is members of one's reference group celebrate their success through the brand, the consumer refreshes or rejuvenates his or her own symbolic experience through a quest of status. For example, Nano for example. So, people who could not have that kind of a purchasing capacity for purchasing cars, they thought of Nano. Nano somehow had to be discontinued, but is it there? It is there. So, then comes in the brand life cycle perspective. Now, I should be taking you through few fundamentals before I culminate in terms of brand life cycle. The first fundamental which I talked about is in relation to the valuation. Just focus on the cost approach, there are other approaches as well. So, cost approach says that brand equity is amount of money that would be required to reproduce or replace the brand. And what is brand? The name, symbol, logo, those kind of things, all those elements, especially the name, is brand. Then the cost approach says that this replacement perspective is associated with including all costs for research and development, test marketing, advertising, etc. Whatever we utilize for generating or establishing that name, Nano, Kodak, Ambassador, those names are still there. If you generate such kind of a name, you require that kind of a set of research, cost and development, cost for development and so on. So, we all know that. Just keep this in mind. And then there is a loyalty perspective, there is a strength perspective, there is a uniqueness perspective. You talk to someone who actually liked Ambassador or who likes the space which Ambassador can offer, think of that. So, you will realize as far as the strength, loyalty, uniqueness and all the intangibles, those have potential to be converted into tangibles. That is what I am referring to when I talk of that brand in physical sense is no more there, but still it is there. Now, for another 3, 4, 5 minutes, let me take you through some data. Look at this. Salesforce brand value rising sharp between 2016 and 2020. It is an eminent organization doing very well now. So, that is one part. The second part is zoom 2020 to within 2020 or 21, basically within 2 years, the value has risen from, let's say $4,500 million to more than $5,500 million or so, kind of. So, a sharp rise, a straight rise. And we are talking of value. I have talked about relationship of value with the brand life cycle perspective. I will be coming back to this shortly. Tesla, again a very important kind of organization and a name, and having a huge brand value. Let us look at some more. Netflix, for example, and keep watching these graphs, and go to Interbrand website and try to find out what I am showing you. So those kind of elements you would realize. Now let us look at this Amazon. Starting from a very low value in 2000, in 2021 years, it's a huge kind of a value which Amazon has generated in terms of brand valuation. Let's look at this IKEA furnitures, going up, coming slightly down, then going up, then coming slightly down, and finally going up once again. Note this down and up movement as of now. Just remember this, and then I will be taking you back towards some fundamentals and would be coming back to the brand life cycle perspective and concept. Now look at Visa. Again, it stagnated for a while. It had stayed there and then it came up, evolved in due course of time. Are you reminiscing or remembering what we talked in brand architecture in terms of potential? Does some elements of hierarchy come to you at this moment? And do you remember what we discussed in brand value chain, wherein we talked about the kind of multiplier effects as far as this whole scenario goes? If you are, then we are on the same plane, same page and right track. Nike, it started from and steady rise with some fluctuation. So that is again a very interesting and important kind of a journey. And then comes in Adobe, 3M rose, stagnated, dipped slightly and then rose back. And this is a very interesting journey. Toyota in front of you. I am not reiterating brand value, which is very high in millions and millions of dollars, but again in 2009, 2010 it dipped quite a bit. And I am not discussing about the methodologies or the perspective of the organization. I rely upon this data. These are credible organizations which are working on these kind of things basically, and their methodologies are time tested. So this went down, then came up, and then in 2016 to 17 it went down once again, went up and came down and is going up once again. So that is the fluctuation which brand valuation received in terms of Toyota. Volkswagen again went to peak in as far as 2014 goes, came down 15, 16, 17 and then 2019 came down, 2021 it is going up once again, and it has seen so many up and down movements. Burberry is also there, Philips is also there. There was a sharp dip in Philips in 2015 I suppose, and then we have Kellogg's. It rose to heights till 2014 and it is reported by Interbrand that it is going down steadily till 2021. The brand valuation has come largely quite a bit as far as downwards. And then comes in Citi, again huge rise, took off from a very high place in that as far as 2000 goes, but although the backwards data might suggest of from where it rose 2000, and if we go for 2000 onwards it rose and then came down and now it is trying to go up basically. And look at this, Huawei, sharp rise between 2012 and 2018 and came down dramatically till 2021. And look at this Canon, is almost a journey of rise and fall in terms of brand valuation. And then Ford, it steadily came down since 2000, and then 2010 it went up, and 21 it maintained kind of its position up till a level. What should be derived as the meaning when we talk of valuation going up and down? Now, I will be, remember this question, I will be reiterating few fundamentals in the form of the charts which we have discussed at length. Those are concepts, those are fundamentals, and you would just realize that when we talk of valuation going down, there are some actions, activities, market acceptance, innovation, leadership perspective, awareness, and so many things which wouldn't have worked or would not be working at that particular stage. So, but again the point is, does the brand goes away? That means the name, symbol, logo, sign, it goes away. If at all it goes away from the memory of the customer and the stakeholders and whole of the, then we can say that it has actually vanished. But if it stays, if Canon is still there, Kodak is still there, those organizations, they have their name with us, Nokia is still there, then there is all a chance of that we can do something about this. So, let us look at this fundamental again. You see, Canon might have lost the resonance, the feelings associated with that might be slightly there in amongst the people who are associated with Canon, who have been associated with Canon, and performance in terms of the brand is must be losing at this particular moment. Salience can be brought up if you look at that. So, that is precisely my point actually. Look at the brands, look at this pyramid, where have they receded? That is the only thing you should be thinking of at this time. Look at this brand value chain. A brand starting from afresh from first value stage, wherein marketing program investment is made on as far as the brand goes. So, it goes towards right, building up shareholders value. But when brand is losing value, that means somehow market performance is coming down, and in terms of customer mindset, it requires program quality multiplier. That means we are losing on that account somehow. Just keep this in mind, and do not forget, name is there. Now, a very important point which I would be raising very shortly in front of you. Now, look at this brand architecture, for example, and here comes in that definitely there is an element of identification of extensions when brand is getting a loss on its valuation basically. So, there can be a scope for enhancing brand portfolios or rationalizing brand portfolios, or enhancing brand hierarchies, or developing a corporate brand perspective around whatever you are doing. Tatas, they have efficiently done that, and that is what precisely my point is. I am not sure of what Tatas they had in terms of their brand valuation before 1998, 1997, but 1998, 99 they were less than $1 billion, and today we have discussed many times that it is around 22 billion. So, if it was higher before that and it came down till 99 and Tata's built it back to $22 billion, that is precisely my point, and that is where life cycle perspective comes in. Same happened with Mahindra, for example. Mahindra, definitely they had a larger brand value. I do not have data at this moment, you can check it from the sources, and definitely it went through a dip in terms of brand valuation. Today we all know Mahindra story, it is a rising star basically. So, that is where we have to focus upon, there have been some actions, activities which have been focused upon by the leadership and the management team and the brand managers of Mahindra, Tatas and such organizations which have risen sharp in due course of time. That is where brand hierarchy comes, some rationalization would have been done, some extension would have been done. So, let me take you towards a two-dimensional representation of how to look at the life cycle perspective in terms of, let us say, a brand basically. let's assume that as soon as you give a name to a product, the brand comes into existence. Now, if somehow it is in the existence, so it is going towards a phase of introduction to growth. It's just an expression. You can put any brand name over at this stage. As soon as the number of customers, especially in terms of people who like this name or associated with this name, is rising, the brand is rising. And even if you are losing on customers and people are aware of this brand, can we assume that the brand is rising? In terms of valuation, it might not be. In terms of awareness, it might be. And in terms of likability, probably it might be. In terms of loyalty also, it might be. So, that is the precise point, that life cycle in terms of brand may put up an aspect associated with reduced consumption if you look at maturity, but if you look at life cycle of a brand with the elements associated with the brand itself, then definitely it's an aspect to be thought about. For example, somehow the number of people who actually do not want that name to be resonating in their minds in due course of time, or let us say people are sort of they have stopped talking about this, they are not aspirational in terms of actually going towards that kind of a brand, they are not discussing that, somehow then there is a stagnation which is coming up. And when it is fading away from the memory of people, it is actually going away from their discussions, it is actually vanishing away from the slightest of the discussion, then somehow we may say that brand is no more there. It happens, but in many cases it takes lot of time. So, if there is a lot of time between these two stages, and if the number of people who remember a brand at the growth stage is almost similar with the number of people which is there at the declining stage, that means brand in one or the other form may take a rise from there, depending upon what kind of marketing program investment, multipliers, or those kind of skills which are associated with developing or pursuing brand architecture, those skills, if they can be pursued well. So, that is where the most important element goes in. Now, let me just draw your attention towards, for example, at that particular stage you feel like that somehow at this stage wherein people are just they are just stopping on as far as the discussion which was growing around brand, they were loving this, and then they have stopped discussing about or their attention is getting drawn towards something else. So, here you may slightly reinforce. Again, if it is downwards from here, you can think in terms of revitalization, or here you can think in terms of repositioning, or here you may think in terms of rebranding, which can also be thought of here as well, which can thought of here as well basically. So, it is my suggestion that we must think in terms of brand's life cycle with the perspective of fundamentals which we have discussed, and taking you towards some activities or actions which we have already talked about, but just drawing your attention towards that. When we say someone wants to reinforce because it is somehow maturing as far as the growth goes, so we can focus upon this segment. For example, we can focus upon developing further relevance in terms of as far as reinforcing the brand goes, and in terms of revitalization we can definitely think in terms of expanding the depth and breadth of awareness and usage of brand. We can somehow re-energize that as far as the whole situation goes. We can improve the favorability also, and the whole story goes on. We have talked about this, but the point is that if somehow we think of brand in terms of brand life cycle, the point is that brands probably they never die, means they live for a very, 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 very long time. Because if you look at Zoom, Netflix, Tesla, Salesforce, they are on a trajectory of wherein customers are getting attracted towards them and they are discussing about them, they are moving towards them. But in terms of Kellogg's, Canon, Kodak, Nokia, things are stagnating or declining in terms of as far as the valuation and growth goes, but have has it vanished, has the name vanished from the memories of the customer? I do not think so. So, if it is not, then definitely we can think in terms of revitalizing and redeveloping the brand as such, and that is where we must focus upon elements of brand knowledge which we have talked about. The message is, genuinely speaking, if we look at a lifetime with a limited time span, brand never dies. I would be coming back to you in my last and culminating session with a narrative and a case study, and would be summarizing whatever we have discussed up till now. Till then, goodbye.